To explore on a project. We're going to work on a project using SQL. So the project is called Student Database Management System. Okay. Now the objective is to design and implement a database management system to store and manage student information using MySQL. Now what are the things we are looking at? Now the requirements, we want to create a database called StudentDB. So this is our database. And then with the following tables. So we are going to be having students table, courses tables, enrollment tables. So basically from looking at this, that means there are students, there are courses, and then there are courses that students are enrolled in. Are we together? So it's going to store those three things inside three different tables. Now, we are going to insert sample data. So I'm just going to put some random data into our table. And then we're going to create SQL query to do what? Display all the students in a specific department, list all the courses offered in the university, show the grades of a particular student. You understand? These are what we're going to do. Then number 4, implement a simple user interface using a programming language to interact with the database and perform the above tasks. So basically this number 4, we're not going to explore it. Are we together? We're not going to do number 4. But then 1 to 3, we are going to do them. So now deliverables. By deliverables, it means what we intend to achieve at the end of the day. So 1, MySQL script to create the database and tables. So after we have created them, we need to store those scripts, right? And then another thing is the data, that's the sample data that we use to install, to put into the tables. And then we have the SQL queries for each task, and then user interface code. So this is optional. As I said, we are not doing this number 4. So, I mean, at the end of the day, this is how we're going to access how correct you are. So this is an example of an assignment or a project I'll be giving to you. So this is how it's going to look like, and this is how you're going to be accessed. So I implore you to pay close attention to what I'm about to do. Are we together? So now, we are going to create a table with the following details: ID, name, email, phone number, and department. So the first thing, let's create a student database. So in order to create a student database, we come here to our SQL, and then the command we have to run is what? Create database student table. Abi? So once we do this, let me copy this code. We click on go, and then we have our database created. Are we together? So now let me put this code somewhere. So if I'm having just this, let me create a note. So this is the first code we have. Let me put this here. Now the next thing is we are creating a students table, right? So in order to create a student table, we have to come to our SQL still. What's the first thing we are going to use? Use what? StudentDB, right? And then the next thing is what? We now start creating the table. Are we together? So in order to create the table, what's the keyword we have to use? Create table, right? What's the name of our first table? Students. So we are going to say what? Students. Then after we say create students, then the next thing we have to do, pardon me, just a minute. Yes. Okay, so we are going to create a bracket, right? We are going to create a bracket, so create it and close it and put your distance. So everything is going to be within this place. Are we together? So the first thing we say is what? ID. So ID is of type what? It's an integer, right? It's an integer. So the ID here is just a number that we are going to assign. It's going to be unique for each student. So integer, and then after we say it's an integer, what else are we going to do? So an integer, we don't need to specify the amount of characters. Are we together? Then the next thing we have to do is to say what? Name, which is the next thing, right? ID, then name, then email, then phone number. So let me do this so that we just, move fast. Right? I do this. I do this. So you can see it's already telling us red, meaning next thing is what? Name. So name is supposed to be in what? VARCHAR. VARCHAR. and then we can assume what's the longest name that we have there. Let's say 100 characters, right? Email, VARCHAR, also we do what? 100 characters. Phone number is what? Huh? VARCHAR, it's actually a character also, because we have plus. Understand? Some phone numbers we have plus. Oh, sorry. VARCHAR 100, right? So we have this, but that is not all. Now I understand that we have done classes that explain these things, but then I want to introduce something newly to you guys. It's called constraints. Have you written it down? Constraints. This is how you spell constraints. Can you see it? Right? So constraints help you to kind of limit the kind of data that is inserted into your database. Right? When you go further into database administration, there is something we call form normalization. So there are issues that you face with your data. Now some of those issues could be that, okay, fine, I want to update Abdul's data, but then I have 3 Abduls. If I do update on one Abdul, what will happen? Maybe all the 3 Abduls will get updated. But when we have a constraint on our tables, then that ensures that when we want to edit only one Abdul is only one Abdul. If you want to edit 2 Abduls that are of the age 12 years old, it's only those 2 Abduls that are of the age 12 years old. Are we together? So a very important constraint we are going to be using today is called what? Primary key. Are we together? It's called primary key. So it's going to appear here. We call it primary key. So primary key is something that is attached to a particular column, right? And then that column, no other column can have the same data with that very column. So if you are 1, no one else can have 1. If you are 2, no one else can have 2. Are we together? And then for primary keys that are having the type of int, there is something that is also added to it. It's called auto increment. Right? So if the first data is 1, the second data is going to be what? 2. The next data is going to be what? 3. Automatically it will be what? Incrementing itself. Are we together? So if I want to edit Abdul's record now, I don't need to go and say update Abdul. I will say update 3. If I know Abdul's what? ID. Because I know that if Abdul is 3, no one else can have what? 3. Are we together? Okay. So if I put this primary key and then I click on go, what just happened?